Okay, we're skipping to Siman Tov Kuf Aleph. Okay. Now, what I skipped had to do with many halachas about hazmana for shchita and the knife and how to prepare the chickens for malicha, etc. Which I think that we should. I think it's not the most important thing for today's olam. Here, what?
I assume the darts and sherris know how to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure that they do. And we're skipping to Eitzim Asurim V'Mutarim B'Yom Tov. All right, this is a fascinating halacha. The subject of mukseh. I'm going to share with you a question which I have a friend of mine who wrote a lot about this subject. There is a thing called a sakin shel shchita. A sakin shel shchita in halacha is almost the prime example of something which is mukseh machmas chasar and kiss. Right? It's an expensive item, and it's easily ruined, and people are miyachad loy makom. So it has all the criteria for it to be mukseh machmas chasar and kiss. On Yom Tov, you're allowed to shecht. Is a sakin shel shchita mukseh chasar and kiss on Yom Tov?
No.
Why not?
Because it's designed. Its only purpose is to shecht. If you're allowed to shecht on Yom Tov, then you should be mukseh.
Can I ask you a question? This is a Hilchos Shabbos question. If I have a golden becher, not a silver one, a golden becher, could that be mukseh chasar and kiss? I don't let my kids get anywhere near it. I keep it in my vault.
It's only there for decorative purposes, not for use.
You could use it.
So if the question is, do you use it? If you could use it and you don't use it, then it's mukseh.
Okay, so this is a machlokes achronim. If you say that there's such a thing as mukseh on a klisha malachta leheter. Okay, I'm not going to get involved in that issue, but on something which is, let's ask you one more question. On Yom Kippur, are shoes mukseh? Tshuvas have been written about all these questions. I didn't invent any of these questions.
You need to walk between what's it called and what's it called, right?
I have sneakers.
You're not supposed to wear shoes. You're not supposed to wear them. So they're set aside for not wearing.
Okay, now Rabbi Shamberg has a long tshuva on this, and if not mistaken, I think his maskana is it goes basar rosh habasas hashana. Now, there's all kinds. There are many questions. The question which I'm
is the shchita name similar to an Ismail on Shabbos? The
same question. Now, Ismail on Shabbos is different because there's another question about an Ismail on Shabbos. According to the Pri Megadim, when a person on Erev Shabbos has a bris on Shabbos, so it's like he made it into not mukseh chasar and kiss for that Shabbos. The Vilna Gaon says about that Pri Megadim, though he never saw him in his life, he says, this is the quote, Misha yoichel shum yachzer v'yoichel shum ma kesher. Okay? And because for what you need to do it, you're allowed to use it, doesn't make it not mukseh. In other words, you're using a mukseh thing. That's why you find all kinds of moilim that have all kinds of tricks what to do with. Yeah. All right. Now, one of the things that you're allowed to do on Yom Tov is make a fire. You can't create a fire, but you can make a fire. And one of the things that fire needs is wood. So a person who wants to chop logs for a fire on Yom Tov, there are two questions which are involved. Sometimes there could be a shaila of toichin, sometimes there could be a shaila of tircha. Mechater is all we do to exact meter.
Except for mukseh. Aside from mukseh.
Yeah, right. That's where we're starting right now. I'm going to discuss with you. I'll just share with you from when I learned mukseh from the Chedushim, which I call Chedushim, because not everybody agrees to this. Liquid soap. We use liquid soap on Shabbos. Mukseh has classifications. There's Michael Adam, there's Michael Behemim, there's Kalim. For something not to be mukseh, it has to fill a certain criteria, go into a certain box. If it doesn't go into that box, it's mukseh. I'll give from the best examples, which I think this is the most amazing example. The thing which is the most mind-boggling to the average person, the thing which is the most mukseh and has the most usage is money. Money is mukseh, not machmas miyas. Why is money mukseh? Money is called it's not a kli, it's a nothing.
Transaction means transaction.
And what about my car? It's also why is what's wrong with transactions?
You might come to right. You're in business.
No, that's not. That would be a klisha malachta le'isr. So the answer to the question, the way I understand it, is that money is never used. You don't use money. Money represents something, and you move it from one place to the other, and that represents something happened.
So a piece of gold will be different. You have a gold coin.
Perhaps. A piece of gold could be a piece of gold. A piece of gold could be a coin. So even if it's a piece of gold that's a coin, you're using it as. Well, you're not using it. Using means like you have a hammer and you bang a nail. You don't use money.
So giving a piece of gold and getting in return something else is not using, it's just a transaction.
Right. But if your piece of gold is a useful item, let's say it's a ring, and you do a barter with it, that's just a question of doing a transaction. But the ring is a ring. Okay, so there are many halachas. Hilchos mukseh is a fascinating subject. So,
does something that's mukseh have to be mukseh for every single Jew? I was thinking when the Rav mentioned about the Moel's knife. The Rav's a Moel, so if Rav has a bris milah on Shabbos...
I'm going to share with you a machlekes of today's poskim. This is a very annoying machlekes. Chacham Ben Tzin Abba Shol says that a defibrillator is not mukseh on Shabbos. He said because the only time you use it is when it's mutter.
You need
Right? It's not a toy, right? And you only use it when it's mutter. And when it's mutter, you could do it on Shabbos too. So even though there's a malacha involved, but its usage is always mutter on Shabbos. And therefore he says that it's not mukseh. You ask me, it's mukseh. But for pekuach nefesh, you're allowed to make a tal to mukseh. The malacha that it does, I think it has to do with that kind of an idea. The malacha that it does is also to do on Shabbos. I can't do that to my cat, right?
or to someone healthy.
Right? No, what it does is usher to do. So because you found that, then why is it different than doing milah on Shabbos? All right? If a sakin shel milah is usher on Shabbos, so a defibrillator should be usher on Shabbos. So
The sakin you can use for other things.
No.
You can't.
no. So the Taz says a person will never use a sakin. He discusses this question in your Ideya. He says it's not available for other usage. It's not called an option. It's a person is disgusted and would never use it. It's a very specific for its. I'm just telling you, that's what you don't like it. You could have your own Shulchan Aruch. Just tell you what the Taz says. That's what the Taz says. So it's not available for other usages. Now, a person who has firewood. I have my firewood in my shed.
Set aside for what?
That's set aside for fire. Let's say I'm in the park and I'm making a barbecue, and I say to my friend, "Would you please give me a piece of wood?" And he says, "There is no wood around over here." So I say, "Give me that bench." Right? That bench is made out of wood. It'll work. Can I do that?
No.
Why?
Because it's a bit like the you have to choose an animal. You have to set it aside. You have to sign it before Yom Tov.
Okay.
You're allowed to use it.
You could sit on it.
You can sit on it.
Yeah.
So it's not
But it's not
mukseh.
set aside for fire.
Okay. Now let's the introduction to the halachas that you're learning over here.
So I'm still puzzled. Suppose the Rav is doing a Bismillah.
This Shabbos. This Shabbos, yes,
Right.
that's actually happening, yes.
Okay, but can the Rav ask someone else that's not a Moel, say the knife is at the other end of the shul, to pick it up and bring it to the Rav only?
I don't ever do that.
But I mean, halachically, would that be
The machlokes, whether I could do that. Okay? I always have the knife someplace in the shul before Shabbos, and only I move the knife. And afterwards, from my point of view, it's absolutely okay because it's a sakana to leave that knife around. There's this thing called kids. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but kids and knives, they don't go together too well. So I can't leave that knife around any place where a kid could get it to it. Therefore, I'm allowed to move it.
But if for some reason someone else would pick up the knife, for them it would be mukseh, right? Only for the Rav. Well, that's what I'm trying to understand. Only for the Rav was the Moel.
According to the Pri Megadim, it's not mukseh for anybody. And according to the Raman Shulchan Aruch, according to the Goyin and the Taz, it's mukseh for everybody.
Why would it be mukseh?
Me included.
Why would it be mukseh for anyone else? They can do
Nobody
it
has
the
that window where you could use it.
It's mukseh for me too.
Oh.
It's just I'm allowed to do it for the mitzvah. It's doicha the mitzvah is doicha the mukseh, but it's not mukseh. And no, and afterwards is a problem. That's why there's some place that say you have to drop it. You have to drop it. Okay? I have an acquaintance of mine, a moil, that he ties it onto a string around his neck. And then he just drops it.
Even if it may get damaged in the process.
It won't get damaged.
And then he's metal sheet gufa kid.
What?
Then he
What's his
keeps
point?
it
That's
until
metal
the Shabbos.
gufa.
That's what?
Metal gufa.
Yeah. There's ways to take care of it. But that's what he does. Okay? Anyways, now, ein mevakim aitzim min hakoros she'omdim lebinyan. You're not allowed to cut off pieces of wood from building supplies. V'loi mikaira shenishbur b'Yom Tov, and not from a beam that broke on Yom Tov. Afilu haisaru'ua me'erev Yom Tov v'kroiveli shavar, even if it was on its last leg beforehand. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Sha'am dos lebinyan. Why can't you cut them? Umuksam heim sha'adam makbir aleim machmas chashivusan. A person is careful with them. Umiyachid le'mokom, which is the sign of mukseh sarin kiss. Va'afilu la'matir mukseh stam. Even those who are mekel on mukseh stam, but mukseh sarin kiss moidu that you have to be machmer. Va'afilu ha'isaru'uya the yachaliyos the mitzapa mi'erev yontiv she'tishaver. A person is waiting for that chair to break so that he can use it as firewood. Le'akse, and he didn't make it into mukseh. Mikal makom osur mishum da'alkoponim bein hashmoshes shlehoisa shavura, and it was not bein hashmoshes shavura. V'tekua bebinyan v'nesra v'einon leiteres, and it doesn't become motiv. Oy dahavale noilad. This is a fascinating idea. The meikara kaira v'have kli v'hashta eitzim v'alma. It went from being one thing to being something else, and that's called noilad, and therefore it's mukseh. V'oy davi noilad the meikara kaira v'hake v'hashta eitzim umitam zeh le'gir amakan kemo b'simin tov tzadikei diyesh matir mukseh u'mishum desamachatzo mashasim sham afilu meikilim le'rotz alahakel b'mukseh the noilad. So, and therefore, It's mukseh because it's noilad. Okay. Aval im nishbro me'erev Yom Tov, if the chair broke or the beam broke on Erev Yom Tov, im i'esha la'asika beloy bikua, if you can't use it as firewood without chopping it into pieces, mevaken noisei chatichas gedolos, you're allowed to cut it into big pieces, beloy yivaken bekardim, beloy b'magel, beloy b'magera, ela b'kupitz. You have to do it with a small knife. This is for shinui purposes. U'betzad ha'kotzer shaloi avolo betzad ha'rochav. Okay, and you have to do it with such a knife, which this isn't the way that it's normally done. Those that say you can only use a sakin. Well, why is this halacha? Says the Mishnah Berurah. Kivan the yeshel afos levashel beloy eitzim also I kedechias melech shemutar aydei shinui. Something which you need for right now, you're allowed to do with a shinui, which we learned this already. V'gam ze lo yitiru ela b'chatichas gedolos delav malachi ela uvda dechol. It's not a malacha; it's just uvda dechol. Aval loy b'chatichas ktanas de yesh bo mishum teichen. Now, I just would like to make a teichen statement. It has to be very small for it to be teichen.
Yeah.
Sawdust.
Not sawdust, doesn't have to be that small, but it has to be, doesn't have to be shaven. It can be even bigger than that. I would say the size of marbles is already a problem.
That's what I'm saying. This guy got firewood.
Well, I would just tell you something. When one makes a fire, you need to start it off with very small pieces. Right.
Now, why do you, since you are
That's
allowed
what he's saying.
to,
Don't make tender kilo.
Yeah.
since you're allowed to cook on Yom Tov, and you don't need a shinur in the cooking, why machshirei yochel nefesh?
That
Why
machshir,
do you
that,
require shinui?
because the machshir can be done before. Even the cooking, theoretically, if it could be done before, it has to be done with a shinui. Right. Just cooking, we said, always is better fresh, so you can't do it before. But we said if you're making something like coleslaw, right, then theoretically it should be done before.
So if you
or
did,
it has to be done with the shinui.
So even if you came into a situation for some reason the food you had got ruined and therefore you weren't expecting to cook, since you couldn't have had pepper before, you still need to do it through the shinui. Right. Because generally you
right.
Very
okay. Okay. Beis. Eitzim gedolim ktas v'ra'uim ma'asaka below bikua. If they could use them, the size is viable. Lo yivake klal. You can't cut them to make them a good size. Avafilu l'shabram b'yad yesh misha oiser. And this is, we're in Tircha Uvd in the whole land. This is not Malacha land. Okay. Lo yivake klal. Retzayin elam delay me long the vakum chatichas dakas v'od yesh v'zeh mishum toichen. Ela afilu la'atzayis al chatichas she'enan dakas gam ken aser. Kivot sheyachal avashel k'dei rasa below bikua. Havalei tircha b'yom tov shaloi letzorich v'aser. You're not allowed to be matriach for no reason. V'amedaktikin lo yinizor af b'chal hamoed. Shemesakrin kol ha'etzim ha'ktanim v'tzichel bishol dogim koidim yom tov. Sheyachal levaroi below bikua. You could do it without doing that. Va'af levaker b'chol hamoed eitzim gedolos sheyesh levash b'am kamos shehem. Kivon she'af shel achiram koidim yom tov yesh lachin koidim yom tov. Im loy shelo hayolo mikoidem. Ochem b'makom shedmei eitzim yikarim b'avi hefsid v'davar avid im yavarem k'mois shehem mitzalachta choysol b'chatichas dakos. This is a very important yesod that you have to know. I'm going to share with you Rav David Baran. Rav Baran was careful and he cut all of his toilet paper before Chol Hamoed. And that's a pretty simple idea. Why? There's no reason that you need your toilet paper fresh, right? And there's a malacha involved. So if you could avoid doing it, one should. That's this idea, which is saying over here. Okay.
But why are you allowed to do it into chatichas ktanos if it's house and berurah? What allowed to do is one chatichas dakas?
What? But not teeny ones. just ones that make it usable.
Oh, but not Teichen size. No.
ואפילו לשבם ביד, כיוון שרום לעסוק בלי שבירה, הבלי בזה, גם כן תיכו שלא לצורך. ויש מי שאוסר, even if you do it with your hands, וכן מסכים מאחריהם. Okay. Now, the next halacha is a fascinating halacha. You're not allowed to be doing things on Yontif which looks like you're involved in malacha, even though that what you're doing is not a malacha, but it has that look to it. I would call it like a maris ayin, but not a maris ayin. It's called like a chashana. Okay. Ein meviim eitzim in asada, afilu hayu muchonasim shami be'erev. You can't bring in your logs that you have cut in your forest. Avo megavev hu basada mishal fanav. If you're cooking in the field and there are eitzim right in front of you, you're allowed to take those. V'chein bechotzer lokech milafanav. Umadlik sham, and you make your fire right there where you collected them. Okay, so says the Mishnah Berurah. V'loshon zeh mashma afilu hechinu mi be'erev oser. V'taima efsher mishum davdi uvdu dechol olelech lasadi lavi eitzim abayis. That's a weekday job for people to go to the field to bring in wood. V'yesh mefarshim de mishum de mischalef b'mefuzar. The people will assume that if you could bring in your wood from the shed that's in the cabin, then you could also collect it in the field. And the field you can't do that. Why? Mishum davi kemegabav letzarech machar v'havi kema'amer. That's the malacha of ma'amer. Ma'amer is what I call the malacha of pack and stack. You're not allowed to package or prepare your produce in the field. Because we see the connection. Since you have a pot right here, it's obvious that you're collecting to make this pot happen. I lost my place. V'das Rashal V'abach V'shar Chorim Lesser Megav Asad Afivu Ofen Zeh Demechse Kemegav B'makom Gituloi Kivan Shu B'asad D'chayiv Mishum Ma'amer. You're not allowed to do it, even though the pot is right there. We're afraid that it looks like you're being Ma'amer. Okay. Lokech Milafanav V'tzad Elam Afilu B'chotzer Megav Rak Milafanav V'tzad Bishal Kedei Rasa Achshav. Aval Agavev Mikol Achotzer L'Haniach, to put it away, that's also ve'en chilik ben ksam k'tanim l'gdalim. Okay. Now, umevian u'mechnasin she'rishus ha'yachar afilu ha'yisa mukefes shaloi l'shem dira b'vat she'yeh sham mizgeres she'tiyeh b'sech tchum t'char Shabbos. You're allowed to bring it from a place that there's no erev, as long as it's in your locale. Okay. Then it's mukseh, you can't take it. Achas mikol elo, hainu shaloi haya mechunis, o shechazer mizgeret, o chutz letchum, harei mukseh lefi time, shekasu le'il, david koved dechol, o mishum, chshash imur, bedin zeh hula kuli yalmo. Vafilu la poiski, u'namatir mukseh b'yom tef, b'zeh osu chachamim dover zeh lemukseh, v'yesh v'forshim d'alocha zuk l'pshuta, d'muchas n'tayim v'ela, mistama aschi adaitu minayu, mileshtayrish v'yom tef, you weren't planning to use it, so it becomes like it's a non-item. That we should consider all of these things, these pieces of wood, as mukseh items. Okay. Ali kan val yohar alphabet shei mechunasim bekarfech kivan sharuch mefazeres oisam harei kemufuzarm basurim. Even if you have them in piles, being that they're easily blown around, we consider them as they're spread out. Then you're allowed to use that. The people want to make grape leaves, stuffed grape leaves, and they have them in the field, you can't use them, unless there was a kli on top of them to keep them in place. Okay. And this is the same problem. Why? Says the Mishnah Berurah, it was part of a tree. So we don't see it as firewood, we see it as part of a tree. There's always a problem with trees that we're afraid on Shabbos that person is going to go and break off a branch. Okay. Kalim shenishbaru b'yom.
These are things that if you leave them, they won't be there by the time it's over. It's a hefsid, no?
What are you? No,
the fruit that fell from the tree.
we're not talking about fruit. We're talking about branches.
Just branch.
Okay. Kalim shenishbaru b'yom tov ein masikim b'hem. If you have a chair that broke, you can't use it as firewood. Mipnei shehe noilad. V'im hisik b'kalim. Also lahapach ba'esh, you can't stoke the coals. Achashu l'ku miksasam. The osave shivei kalim. Elam kain rab aleim eitzim muchonim. If you added onto those kalim eitzim muchonim, so then most of the fire is kosher fire. So then you're allowed to do that. Ava masikim b'kalim shleimim or b'kli shenishbru mi'ba'od yom. But you can put a whole chair into a fire and use that, because then when it became noiled, it already was firewood. Or became shenishbru ba'od yom, because that became firewood naturally. Okay. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah says that if the kli was broken, but it's still salvageable to use in some way in its original form, it's still mukseh. Shkedim v'egoizim she'achol me'erev Yom Tov masikim b'klipayim b'Yom Tov. Aval achol b'Yom Tov en masikim b'klipayim. The shells that were used as kindle wood, if they were eaten before Yom Tov, you could use them. But if they're eaten on Yom Tov, they're called noilad. Why? Because when Yom Tov came in, they were bottled to the food. We saw them as human food, and now we see them as firewood. V'gam ein masik ein lahasik im agoizim shkedim v'atzim elam kein heim adayim b'klipa v'lapidim shanishru miyom tov rishon shekavu muter lahachzev l'adlikim afilu b'yom tov sheni shel Rosh Hashanah v'yom tov acher. This is a very important idea. If a person has a candle that went out in the middle, you're allowed to rekindle it on Yom Tov. Okay. There's a few shalas involved in that. Let's see. Ma'pidim shenishru hu adin psila shenidlika b'Shabbos v'nichbes. Mutar lahachzor tzadalav la'afukim misharotza lesser mitam de'etzim shenidliku v'nichbo hu adin psila shenichbes. Okay, there's a difference between the two. V'noichem achkach yosel la'adlaka me'etzim u'psilos chadasha shenimtzim shenichu shekiv b'Shabbos hachshiras u'lemocha lios nidlakim yofa. This is a fascinating idea. I was very old when I really understood this. People pre-light candles before they light them, because when you pre-light them, they light quicker.
Because it's a Mishnah.
Yeah, but why is it a Mishnah? Right? Because, okay.
That's only if you don't have wax covered wicks.
That's, yeah, fine. Okay. It's like Beit Shenolda b'Yom Tov, Asur b'Yom Tov Shachar v'Shubachana. U'Bali Svara Zu Asifo Oid Yosef Afilu Eitzim Opsil Shenichvu b'Yom Tov Shel Rosh Hashanah Asur L'Machra. So Kivin the Shnei Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah Ein Oid Safek v'Havi Lehu Shnei Yom Tov B'Fnei Hatzmo Shnei Kedushas Ein Kedush Hatzmo Chilei Chaveret K'mo Yom Tov Chavero U'Bal Hago Hadain Choylek Al Svara Seil HaPais V'Svilei Zelo Likri Achana K'mo Beit Shenolda Sharei Gufa Eitzim Apsilo Hoye Ba'olam Mikvar Ela Shenishtabchu. That's not called Achana if you upgraded something. Achana is when you created something. V'nei Afar Amos Sason Kedatzim Mekil Mitam De Rabbo Amatir Mikol Makom Lechatchila Toiv V'Nachon Loses Yidei Akol V'Hainu L'Hochim Miba'od Yom Psilos Chadasha Shia Al Kol Yom Tov you should turn the wick over and light the bottom instead of the top. Okay.
What's the issue here with the lighting a new wick?
Lighting a new wick is creating a wick.
By lighting it, you created a wick?
Yeah,
Once
because
it burns, it becomes like a child. That's the wick. If more than just a piece of string.
Once I put it in the candle, they're already-
No. You are a very modern person. If you would live 200 years ago, you would laugh at what you're saying now. I guess since you don't live 200 years ago,
Yeah.
okay.
So fill me in.
There are things that once they're started, they work better. They restart better. Okay? But to do them the first time,
Oh, you gotta get it go. You gotta
right.
figure it out. You gotta.
So that's called making it into a psila.
Okay.
Okay. That's the subject. Okay.
Kind of like a shoelacing a shoe. Putting a shoelace that was already in.
I'm going to quote you. It's like using a computer the first time. Okay?
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah, okay.
For some reason, doesn't get
It's
going.
not going in.
Right? You have to. Okay?
Talk to the generation.
Okay. All right. Next halachas. Ein motziin eish lo min ha'etzim v'lo mi'avonim v'lo min ha'ofer v'lo min ha'mayim ela ve'ein oisim p'chomim ve'ein novchim b'mapuach ela b'sheferes. Okay. V'nagu b'papuach shel batim v'ayidei shin la'hopcho milma'ala mata. Okay. So let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Mipnei shekol elu hu moiled eish b'yom tov. V'ol v'esher lahamtzi eish me'erev yom tov v'yeh muchon loi b'yom tov. Lo hutte lahoyled b'yom tov. To lot of mishoy machshin she'efshel asaysai mi'boid yom da'aser. Okay. Now I'm just going to share with you a fascinating halacha. If somebody turned on a fire on Yontif, somebody did that on Shabbos, they did a malacha d'oraisa. If they did that on Yontif, what did we just say? What did they do?
No.
D'Rabbanan. And therefore, there are many nafkaminas to this halacha l'maisa. I'll just mention here in this shul, probably about 10 years ago, on a Yontif, the lights did not turn on in the morning. And the question was, were you allowed to get a guy to turn the lights on? Now, amongst the reasons that I was makel at that time was because it was Yontif. And on Yontif, it's not a Yisur d'oraisa to turn on the lights. It's only a Yisur d'Rabbanan. Even to make the fire, even if it's a real fire.
Even the starter, let's say.
Even the starter is just a fire. The fire is, we just said, is d'Rabbanan. Lo min ha'etzim, kigon shechochim zu bezu, oy maken zu bezu at shtetzi eish, v'lo min ha'ofer, karka kosher shechofer noiso oy tzior, v'chein ki ha'gavna, shechashash kar v'yadom v'elu motzior, v'lo min ha'mayim, hane shenoisim mayim b'kli zchuchis, levano v'noisno b'chamo, v'kshashemesh cham, ma'oid mekarven elav noris pishtam v'hiboyeres. This is more or less what we call a magnifying glass.
It goes through the water and
It goes through the water, magnifies the fire, and then you put the and then it catches on fire. I'm b'tshuvas ksav sefer she'asa lahadlik Zinderholz shekarin shveblach, which means matches in English. V'ayidei sheyichtav oisai be'efer kirachav she'em ba'eish rak koyach chom eish delo mamsi davar chodosh. You're l'chay creating something new. V'chein v'chachech kinderholz v'barzel cham v'lubon k'mo tar barzel v'koso gam kein delo nira lahater aval yesh lo gaches b'ches muter liga boy Zinderholz tetalik av she'ein begacheles shall have its kshura. Okay, v'gam megalachas almost mitzad sham deshari. I'm going to share with you my experience with this halacha. When I was a bocher,
when matches first came out,
I don't remember. When I was a bocher, I was in Bnei Brak for Leil HaSeder, and I was sleeping by my uncle's house, and I came back probably like 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't light Yom Tov candles yet. So there were candles there, but there was nothing to light them with. So what does the Shiur Bacher do? I went to the local base medrash, and I schnorred from someone a cigarette. Okay, lit the cigarette, carried the cigarette to my uncle's house.
The other guy lit the cigarette for you.
Yeah, whatever. And then in my uncle's house, I took a match and put it to the
End of the cigarette.
not the filter side.
Cigarette,
Yeah. Right? And then I had a wonderful candle lit, right? Then, after this happened, I realized that maybe what I did was usher. Because of this shiloh over here. This is exactly this question. What did I light it from? Okay, so that's the question. What does it have to be? If you would have, if I have a fire, the olden-fashioned lanterns, right? And I take a match and I put it on top of that place where the heat comes out, am I allowed to do that? Because it's going to burn. It's going to become a fire. Now, where's the fire coming from? I'm going to give a science class right now. There is no such thing as a fire spreading. There is only spontaneous combustion. The fire that was there brings the material next to it to such a great heat that it bursts out in flame by itself. There is no such thing as a fire continuing to burn. It's always a chain reaction. I just said over 8th grade science, nothing exciting. Okay? So what happens is you have a fire, and the heat of that fire is forced to go into a very small spot. So that heat is very hot, and therefore when you put a piece of straw there, that straw will catch on fire. Is that called that it came from the fire, or it came from the heat?
Because if it's from the heat, it's like using these things to make a fire.
Right.
Rubbing them together.
According to the posting, that's
So then how do you light on a flame?
It's happening now. We don't look into it.
I'm asking you, where did it happen from?
So you have to literally take something and put it in the flame itself to light from.
So now after I said what we said, I would like to read again this Mishnah Berurah, and you'll see this is a very precious Mishnah Berurah. Start from the Amud Beis. Okay. Aydei sheyichtov be'efer kiracham she'em bo eish rak choma eish. If you put it into the warm ashes, dalo mamtzi dover chodosh. That's called you're creating something new. Now, according to what we said before, it could be that that's called you still have the heat of the fire. Okay? V'chei nechache atzinder holds bebarzel cham melubon kemo tarno barzel kosogam kein deloy nir lahater. That's not yet called a gacheles. Okay? Avlim yesham gacheles boeres muter ligo atzinder holds shetadlik av she'en gacheles shall have his kshura. Even though it's just red hot and there is no fire. That's called enough. And I'm willing to say that a cigarette is gacholas amimois. It's not really it's on the way out. Right?
Depends when you took the last buffalo.
No, always. It's always amimois.
Even if you just say, it's hard to say.
No, it's just more. It's just there's more oimimois. It's not. It doesn't become a different thing. It's not boyer. All right. Anyways, einois and pechom deshamdu alitzrufei zav v'gam hu mechaba. You can't make pechom because the way to do it is you're creating a new item and also you're mechaba. Ve'ein noivchem v'vapuach mishum shedoim moleches uman. By using that, what's it called? Bellows. That's what it's called. Yeah, you're doing a malaches uman. Ve'em bechlaza ma shenofim ala eish bebeged o bekli she'osi lekach minoitzos. Dein zedam lemapuach. Because that's not like a mapuach. That's just like a homemade job. That's not like we don't see that you're doing a kli umnis. Okay, you can't do all these things because it looks like you're doing a malacha. Says the Ramah, you're allowed to lower the fire. But that's only if you have a benefit for it right now. Okay, Madura b'Yom Tov, kishu oreches ha'etzim eino maniach zeh al zeh ad sheyitzad ha'marachum b'nei shenir keboine. You should make like a nice pile. Elo shoifech eitzim be'irvov o orech b'shinoi. Keitza maniach eitz l'mayla maniach achar tachtav v'achar tachtav ad shu magia la'aretz. V'chei kedera oiches oiso machnis ha'avonim tachteha avolo yanecheo al gabi ha'avonim. Shouldn't do it in the normal fashion. I will bait him lo yamed oisam v'shura al gab v'shura ad sheyamo kamo migdol el yeshana yaschel mimal mata. V'chein kol kayetze v'zet tzorch shinoi. Okay, v'chein shulchan sheyesh lo defanos amagias la'aretz tzorch shinoi when you make it. I will muter lahoshev shulchan shalonu al raglov to put the plata on the top. Shem bezem mishum binyan. V'yesh omer afilu magil oretz kozman shein tzorch la'aver tachtov shari, because it's not called that you're making a oil. Okay. All right. We'll stop over here. Okay.